5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Welcome back to part 3 of a 3-part series where I make a dust collection system out of an old bounce house blower. In part 3, I'll give an update on how the system is working, I'll complete the final leg of the project, and lastly, I'll do a giveaway of the Dust Deputy Cyclone I was using in my old system to one subscriber who wants it, so stick around. Okay, so let's look at the design one more time. If you haven't checked out part 1 or 2 of the series, I recommend you checking those out first. But so far, we've upfitted the dust collection bin, we've upfitted the bounce house blower, we've connected pipe to the router table and to the miter station. The last part is to run the pipe up the wall and across the ceiling and down to the table saw that sits in the middle of the room. And it was to connect the joiner to the system, but I'm going to hold off on that for now. Now for an update on how sucky it is. There have been a couple times when I've noticed that the suction hasn't been so great. The first time I discovered that the pipe had separated from the fitting. The second time I forgot to put the lid completely on the dust collection bin. So, easy fixes. But other than that, the system's working really well so far. The only thing I would go back and change if I could is putting 2 dust hoods in the dust collection box instead of the one in the middle. I find that the dust really likes to collect on the sides. Okay, so I realize that was a really short update, but honestly, there's not a ton to show because the system's working really well, which, thinking about it now, is pretty boring. It'd be a lot more interesting if things were falling apart or dust was spitting out into the air, but that just isn't the case. We'll start the next part by making some metal ties out of this steel strapping to secure the pipe to the wall and to the ceiling. I made about 6 of these horseshoe shapes to start out with. Luckily, I had most of the coil left over from a steam bending strap I had made. The process to make the straps, ties, or whatever you want to call them was simple enough. All I did was figure out the approximate length that I needed, put the strap in my vise, and bent it back and forth several times, sometimes with the help of a hammer, until the metal was weak enough to break. Then all that was left to do was to bend each end of the strap between the first and second pair of holes. You can surely do them as you go, but I decided to make 5 of them in advance, which ended up being a bad idea, which you'll see shortly. You know what? Scratch that. If I'd only made them one at a time, I wouldn't have been able to play some horseshoes. Ringer. Okay, enough screwing around. Now it's time to lay some pipe. But first, a little friend pops in to say hello. Okay, that's what it sounded like in reality, but in my head, this is what I heard. Keep killing bugs, little buddy. Just maybe not close to where I'm working. That's all. Okay, now that the spider situation has been dealt with, I can put the blast gate in between these 2 pieces of PVC pipe. I experimented with a few different combinations of fittings to try to get the pipe around the shelf hanging from the ceiling, but ultimately I just decided that the pipe going up the wall at a tiny angle is a-okay. Now that that's figured out, time to cut some more of this big, expensive PVC pipe. But while he's doing that, let's take a second to discuss this 90-degree angle where the wall meets the ceiling. What you don't want is a 90-degree fitting to make this turn. I'm no scientist, but I do know this restricts the airflow. What you want to go with is 2 45-degree fittings with a decent length of pipe between them. You could actually go with 4 22-degree fittings if you want to get crazy with it, but I think that's probably a little bit overkill. Just be sure you measure the hypotenuse of the triangle, if you will, and not the side. Also be sure to include the 1 inch or so where the pipe slides into the fitting on each side. And now seems like a great time to tell you that today's video is brought to you by unbearably hot and humid North Carolina weather.
Batman's Records.
And this is why it's not such a great idea to make all the straps at once. With the window here, I had to make a different kind of strap, which required a longer piece of metal.
Okay, now we move on to the ceiling. Finally, the Keystone cops called in for backup, thank God. Now that I know where my studs are, which they're 22 inches apart and run this way, I can start to install more straps and get the PVC pipe hung.
Check out that wedgie.
I attach the hose to the PVC pipe for now and pretty much call it a day. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to run out and grab a little bit more PVC pipe to complete the project. Day one, and I'm spent. Okay, and now we are on to day two. I put another strap into the ceiling, and then I put the missing piece of PVC in to connect the pipe to the wall. I knew that the hose connection shown here was not going to work. It basically is creating a 90-degree angle, which we know now science doesn't like. So I add a 45-degree fitting and put another strap around the fitting. You can disregard the strapping mechanism you see here. I'm not entirely sure of what I was expecting it to do, but whatever it was, it definitely did not work. So I disassemble that and then widen the holes for some different hardware that will attach the strap to the hose and attach the hose to the ceiling. So this solution, although not elegant in the slightest, actually does a pretty darn good job of holding the weight. The strap is connected to the stud, so there's really no risk of it coming down. Honestly, I don't really care what it looks like as long as it works. And now for the moment of truth. Will we have liftoff or will we have failure to launch?
Ignition sequence start. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Liftoff. We have a liftoff. 32 minutes past the hour.
It works. Oh man, that is such a relief. I was not convinced that the dust was going to go up the hose and make it that long distance. I am so pumped.
It isn't too difficult to detach the hose from the table saw to get my work table here, but I think in the future I'll try to figure out more of a quick release system. Alright, well that's the project, y'all. I appreciate you giving it a watch. Hopefully the system holds up. Hopefully the motor doesn't go out on the blower. But the good news is I think I can swap out the bounce house blower with a legit dust collection system without having to change too much. Hopefully that's the case, but I guess we'll see. All that's left to do now is to give away this Dust Deputy Cyclone that I used in the old dust collection system. So if you are interested, 1, you need to be a subscriber, and 2, you need to comment on one of the 3 videos in this series and tell me what you liked or didn't like about the video. I'm still relatively new to this, so your feedback will help my videos get better. Thanks again for watching. Until next time.